بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين جل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. We talked about the love of Imams for people, and in particular we talked about the love of Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif for people, especially for believers. One aspect of this love is the fact that they have great concern for people. If they are happy, the Imam becomes happy. If people are sad, Imam becomes sad. To the extent that in several hadiths we saw that Imams even feel the pain. We had it in the hadith of Rumayla with Amir al-Mu'minin. We had it in the hadith of Amr ibn Ishaq with Amir al-Mu'minin. And also we had it from Imam Rida alayhi salam. The next thing that we want to talk about this as another aspect of love that they have is that they pray for people. They pray for all. And they pray in particular for believers, and in the most particular way, sometimes they pray with a specific individuals in mind. We had some references to this before. For example, in the hadith of Rumayla, we had this part that Amir al-Mu'minin says, وَلَا يَدْعُو إِلَّا آمَنَّا. They don't make dua unless we say Ameen. وَلَا يَسْكُتْ إِلَّا دَعَوْنَا. And they are not silent unless we make dua for them. We had also in the hadith of Amr ibn Ishaq that Imam said, وَنَدْعُو لَكُمْ. We pray for you, and also when you pray we say Ameen. So this is already what we have mentioned, but we want to expand and mention some other hadiths. Also, you remember when the person asked Imam, Hassan ibn Jahm asked Imam Rida, please don't forget me in your prayer. Imam said, do you think I forget you? Do I forget you? We had this hadith also before. Imam al-Zaman Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif makes prayers for people. Some of our du'as actually are du'as that are from Imam al-Zaman. For example, this famous dua, Allahumma arzuqna tawfiq at-ta'ah wa bu'd al-ma'siyah wa sidq al-niyyah wa irfan al-hurmah, up to the end, is from Imam Zaman. Sheikh Kaf'ami in Misbah, which is a book of dua, says that this is dua of Imam Mahdi. Sheikh Abbas Qumi also quotes this. So Imam makes this dua, and we are taught also this dua to join Imam in his duas. So Imam is making dua for men, women, old people, young people, those who have power, على الأمراء بالعدل والشفقة, citizens وعلى الرعية بالإنصاف وحسن السيرة. So he makes dua for different groups of people and general. This is one example. Another example is what Sayyid ibn Tawus rahmatullah alayh in his book Muhajjud Da'awat wa Manhajul Ibadat mentions. I am quoting this from Muhajjud Da'awat, page 295. He says, this is dua of Al-Imam Al-Alim Al-Hujjah. He refers to something and then he says that end of it is this dua from Imam Al-Alim Al-Hujjah. إلهي بحق من ناجاك وبحق من دعاك في البر والبحر. O Allah, because of whoever whispered to you, and because of whoever called upon you, prayed to you, fil bar, in the land, or fil bahr, on the sea. Maybe it's someone on an island, maybe it's traveling on a boat, etc. Means everywhere, because the whole earth is either bar or bahr, is either land or water. تفضل على فقراء المؤمنين والمؤمنات بالغنى والثروة. Then has some similarities with the famous dua, Allahumma arzuqna tawfiqata. But there are differences as well. There's overlap. Please have favor upon poor believing men and women by giving them rich. Ghina wa tharwa. Make them rich so that they can look after their needs. To be free from need. وعلى مرضى المؤمنين والمؤمنات بالشفاء والصحة. And those believing men and women who are ill, or the ill people that they have, please give them healing and health. وعلى أحياء المؤمنين والمؤمنات باللطف والكرم. Those who are alive from believing men and women, please have favor upon them with your lutf and karam. Lutf means to be kind, to have favor upon them. Karam means to honor them, to be generous with them. وعلى أموات المؤمنين والمؤمنات بالمغفرة والرحمة. And those mu'mineen and mu'minat who have passed away, please bless them with your mercy and forgiveness. وعلى غرباء المؤمنين والمؤمنات بالرد إلى أوطانهم سالمين غانمين. Those believing men and women who are gharib, who are not in their own land, who are strangers in another land, maybe they are musafir, travelers, maybe they are stuck somewhere. So please have favor upon them بالرد إلى أوطانهم, with letting them return, helping them go back to their watan, to their homeland. Salimin Ghanamin, while they are safe and healthy, and Ghanamin, they have achieved what they wanted. For example, if they have gone for business, if they have gone for treatment, so they can go back with benefiting from this trip. بمحمد وآله أجمعين. So, Sayyid ibn Tawus says this is the dua of Imam Zaman. You see, Imam Zaman is making dua for believing men and women. Then he has something which is also very interesting. So now we reached the next page. So this is Muhajir Da'wat, page 296. He says, فَصْلٌ وَكُنْتُ أَنَا بِسُرِّ مَنْ رَأَى. You know that Sayyid ibn Tawus is one of our ulama which is very highly regarded. Sayyid ibn Tawus and Allami Bahrul Ulum are among some of ulama that are very, very highly regarded. There are also others like Muqaddasa Ardebili. These are the people that all our ulama have great respect for them, and these are the people that their piety is at the peak, is an example for piety. And Sayyid ibn Tawus and Bahrul Ulum are believed that they had honor of meeting Imam Zaman. So we are not talking about ordinary people or even ordinary scholars. We are talking about the highest rank of scholarship and taqwa. Sayyid ibn Tawus says, كنت أنا بسر من رأى. I was in Samirra. Surra man ra'a is the expanded version of Samirra. Samirra is the brief version of Surra man. Means whoever visits becomes happy. It was a nice city. Of course, initially was a military base, then became a city. فَسَمِعْتُ سَحَرًا دُعَاءَهُ alayhi salam. In Sahar, early morning, around Fajr, I heard dua of Imam Zaman. He knew that this voice is the voice of Imam Zaman. And he says that in that dua, Imam mentioned al-ahya'a wal-amwat. And he says, I memorized it. فَحَفِظْتُ مِنْهُ مِنَ الدُّعَى. Means minhu min Imam alayhi salam. I memorized from him مِنَ الدُّعَى لِمَنْ ذَكَرَهُ مِنَ الْأَحْيَاءِ وَالْأَمْوَاتِ. Du'as that Imam made for Ahya and Amwat. And then he says, finally, وَكَانَ ذَلِكَ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْأَرْبِعَاءِ. This was the night of Wednesday, ثالث عشر ذي القعدة, 13th of ذي القعدة, سنة ثمان وثلاثين وستمائة, in the year 638. 638, more than 800 years ago. So Imam Zaman prays for people, prays especially for mu'mineen, those who are traveling, those who are ill, those who are alive, those who have passed away, etc. So this is general du'as, but also according to some references we understand that also when they see a'mal of the people and they are aware of their conditions, they also may make a specific du'as for each of them. And there are hadiths for this that we can find in Bihar al-Anwar, volume 23. There is a famous story that many of our scholars have mentioned, and that is about father of Sheikh al-Saduq. Father of Sheikh al-Saduq was a great scholar himself, and he is also called Ibn Babawai, Ali ibn Babawai. He sent a written request, we call it Arize, to Imam Mahdi Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif through Abu al-Qasim Hussein ibn Ruh Nawbakhti, one of the 4 deputies of Imam Mahdi in the time of minor occultation, requesting for Imam's dua to be granted child. Imam alayhi salam sent a written message, a tawqi', something with his own handwriting or something with his, signature, and said that we prayed for you and Allah will give you 2 good children. One of his children became Sheikh al-Saduq, Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayh. And Sheikh al-Saduq is known as one of the masters of Shia in many disciplines, in particular hadith. Man la yahduruhu al-faqih, which is one of our 4 major early collections of hadith, one of Kutub Arba'ah, belongs to Sheikh al-Saduq, but he has many books. Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Babawayh Qummi, known as Sheikh al-Saduq. And it is interesting that in the time of Fath Ali Shah, the Qajar king, if I am not mistaken, was in the year 1283. So about more than 100 years ago, the grave of Sheikh al-Saduq, which is in Shahr al-Ray near Tehran, now it's part of Tehran, had some destruction. So his body, his kafan, became visible. And they found that his body was fresh after about 900 years. The news reached the king, and the king said, wait. He went, many ulama went and saw, and then they made new construction. Sheikh Saduq. And Sheikh Saduq was always grateful that he was born through dua of Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. He used to say, أنا ولدت بدعوة صاحب الأمر. I am born with the dua of Imam Zaman. Another child, which Ali ibn Babawayh, the father is Ali ibn Babawayh. Sheikh Saduq is Muhammad ibn Ali ibn. Another child is Hussein. Hussein ibn Ali ibn Babawayh. Because Imam said he will be given two good children. He also was a great alim and faqih. And many ulama came through him in his progeny. So Imam makes du'as for all, makes du'as especially for believers, makes specific du'as for the Shia depending on their condition. And also when we make du'a, he says Ameen and ask Allah to accept and answer our du'a. This is a manifestation, one of the manifestations of love of Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. The next thing is that they also remember, and sometimes if we have tawfiq, we would see that they call us by our names. Because sometimes you can talk about someone in a very general way, in an abstract way. But to mention someone specifically with his own or her own personal name is different. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran mentions some of the people with their names. For example, when Allah talks about, Yusuf, ala nabina wa alayhi salam, Musa, Isa, Ibrahim, wa nadaynahu an ya Ibrahim. So Allah calls him with his name. Of course, mentioning names can have a set of reasons. But one reason is show a special attention and love. So we have cases that Imams alayhimus salam addressed people with their own personal names. The story that I would like to share with you, and you find in many books, is from Allami Bahrul Ulum. Someone that I said, like Sayyid ibn Tawus, is at a very high level. Who is reporting this story? One of great scholars who was very close to Allami Bahrul Ulum. If you want this story, you can go to Biharul Anwar, volume 53, starting with page 234. This story is the 9th story. So, Mullah Zainul Abidin ibn Muhammad as-Salbasi, who was a student of آیت الله السید السند و العالم المسدد فخر الشیعه و زینت الشریعه العلامه الطباطبایی السید محمد مهدی. You know, Tabatabai is a title for group of Sayyids whose grandfather is Sayyid Tabataba. This is why they are called Tabatabai. Allama Tabatabai, Ayatollah Qadi Tabatabai, Ayatollah al-Uzma Burujirdi Rahmatullah alayhi, Allama Bahrul Ulum. They all go back to that person. And Sayyid Bahrul Ulum is coming from a family of Sayyids that, because of the pressures, they went to Iran. For some time they were in Burujerd, but then some of them went for a study to Iraq and Najaf, etc. So Sayyid Bahrul Ulum was in Najaf, and he was a great authority for the Shia. Sayyid Bahrul Ulum had this Sheikh Satmasi as one of his students, and he was one of the people who was with him. Fessir wal Alaniya was a person who was very trusted by Allama Bahrul Ulum, and he was with him in public meetings and even in private meetings. This Sheikh Ayatollah Salmasi says, I was there in Najaf fil Mashhad al-Gharavi. Mashhad al-Gharavi means Najaf. Mashhad al-Razavi is the city of Mashhad in Iran, but Mashhad al-Gharavi belongs to Amir al-Mu'minin Najaf. He says, I was in the gathering of Sayyid in Mashhad al-Gharavi when Muhaqqiq Qummi, who is known as Sahib al-Qawanin, because he has a famous book on Ilm al-Usul called Al-Qawanin. So he is known as Sahib al-Qawanin. He says, when Mirza Qummi, Sahib Qawanin, came to Najaf to meet Ayatollah Bahrul Ulum, I was there. So he came to Najaf for ziyarah and also made visit of Allama Bahrul Ulum. So there were many people in that meeting. Many people wanted to see him. There were more than 100 people. When all left and only 3 mujtahids remained, بقيت ثلاثة من أصحابه أرباب الورع والسداد البالغين إلى رتبة الاجتهاد. Only 3 mujtahideen who were his companions, they remained. So it became a very private meeting. Mirza Qummi himself was a great man, great scholar. People in Qum, especially, if you ask locals, they have great respect for Mirza Qummi, and they believe that if they have hajat, they can pray to Allah next to the grave of Mirza Qummi and their hajat will be granted. But Mirza Qummi knows the status of Bahrul Ulum. So says to Bahrul Ulum, إنك فزتم وحزتم مرتبة الولادة الروحانية والجسمانية وقرب المكان الظاهري والباطني. You are a son of Amir al-Mu'minin. Physically, biologically, you are Sayyid. But spiritually also you are a son of Amirul Mu'mineen. You are near also Amirul Mu'mineen, near in physical distance because you are resident in Najaf, but also in a spiritual rank. You are very close to Amirul Mu'mineen. فتصدقوا علينا بذكر مائدة من موائد تلك الخان. From this banquet that you have benefited from, please give us sadaqah, to us something. ثمرة من الثمار التي جنيتم من هذه الجنة. Give us a fruit of the fruits that you have picked up from this garden, so that our heart would come to rest and we would have itminan. As Ibrahim alayhi salam, when Allah asked him, أَوَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ قَالَ بَلَى وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. So, فَأَجَابَ السَّيِّدْ مِنْ غَيْرِ تَأَمُّلٍ. Sayyid Bahrul Ulum, of course, was not mentioning these things to everyone, but this is a private meeting of mujtahideen and a request by a great alim who was like a marja. So without hesitation, he said, إني كنت في الليلة الماضية قبل ليلة أو أقل. Sheikh Salman says, I don't remember, I said before 2 nights or last night I was in Kufa, Masjid Kufa, for Salatul Layl, and was intending to return Najaf fi awwal al-subh. So I was there for Salatul Layl. I wanted to do Salatul Fajr in Masjid Kufa and return Najaf. لَأَلَّا يَتَعَتَّلَ أَمْرُ الْبَحْثِ وَالْمُذَاكَرَةِ. Because I didn't want to miss my lectures. Ulama, many times they call the lectures, mubahatha. They say we have some discussion with talaba. They don't say many times we teach them. We do mubahasa, we have bahs, muzakara, discussion. And this was his habit. هكذا كان دأبه في سنين عديدة. For many years he had this habit, that he had a special times for going for Salatul Layl, etc., but not missing his lectures. Allami Bahrul Ulum says, in that night when I left Masjid Kufa, I felt great eagerness for Masjid Sahle. But I said I should not go there because I'm worried if I go there I will miss my lessons. فَصَرَفْتُ خَيَالِي, and I tried to divert my mind from that. خوفا من عدم الوصول إلى البلد قبل الصبح. I was worried that I will not reach Najaf before sunrise. It shows that from beginning of the day he was teaching. فيفوت البحث في اليوم. Then I would not be able to teach. But he says this shawq, this eagerness was increasing. يزيد في كل آن. This shawq was increasing. And my heart was leaning towards Masjid al-Sahle. Yesterday we talked about existential connection between Imam and followers. Depending on where they are, they feel attraction. So I was seeing that my heart is leaning towards Masjid al-Sahle. بينما أقدم رجلا وأؤخر أخرى. I was moving one step towards Najaf, but then going back. إذا بريح فيها غبار كثير. Then there was a wind, brought lots of dust. And anyway, I felt even the wind is pushing me. فكأنها التوفيق الذي هو خير رفيق. It was a tawfiq, which is the best friend. So that I was pushed and went towards Masjid al-Sahle. I found myself at the gate of Masjid al-Sahle. فدخلت فإذا به خاليا عن العباد sorry عن العباد والزوار. عباد is plural for عابد. عباد is plural for abd. Here is عباد. I found Masjid al-Sahle was empty. Early morning, near sunrise. People have said their salat, everything, have gone home. Anyway, there was no one there, no worshipper, no za'ir, pilgrims. إلا شخصا جليلا مشغولا بالمناجاة مع الجبار. I saw only one person, a great person who was busy with whispering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala بكلمات ترق القلوب القاسية. But the way he was doing munajat, these words were making even hard hearts very soft and bringing tears even from dry eyes. Then he says, my condition, my feeling changed. My knees became, shaking, and my tears started coming down. Because I had not heard such words, I had not seen such thing. So I realized that this person is not reading a dua which is ma'thur, because if it was ma'thur, he was aware, he was familiar, he's a great alim. Says this is not dua ma'thur. This, I realized that the one who is whispering is making it right now, is composing it right now. عرفت أن الناجي ينشئها في الحال لا أنه ينشد ما أودعه في البال. Inshad is different from insha. Insha means to initiate, to compose. Inshad means it is already said, you read it. So he says, فوقفت في مكاني مستمعا متلذذا إلى أن فرغ من مناجاته. I stood where I was, listening and enjoying till he completed munajat. فالتفت إلي وصاح باللسان العجم. He turned towards me and in lisan ajab, in Farsi language, in non-Arabic language, he told me Mahdi biya. Because Allama Bahrul Ulum's name was also Mahdi, Sayyid Mahdi Bahrul Ulum. Mahdi, come. Look at the love and intimacy of Imam Zaman. He says, Mahdi, come. He says, I went forward few steps but stopped. Out of respect, I didn't go very close. فأمرني بالتقدم, told me, come here. He says, مشيت قليلا ثم, again I went a little bit further and then stopped. فأمرني بالتقدم وقال إن الأدب في الامتثال. Then Imam said, come. Because he knew that I want to be polite, but Imam said, you should listen when you are asked to do something. This is also adab. So فَتَقَدَّمْتُ إِلَيْهِ بِحَيْثُ تَصِلُ يَدِي إِلَيْهِ وَيَدُهُ الشَّرِيفَ إِلَيَّ. I went so close that my hand was reaching him. His hand was also reaching me. وَتَكَلَّمَ بِكَلِمَةٍ. And Imam said something. Mullah Salmasi says, when Sayyid Bahr Ulum reached here, he changed the discussion and tried to talk about something that was mentioned before, because Mirza Qummi had asked him before, when maybe there were other people as well, that why you don't write more books. So he started talking about this. Muhaqqiq Qummi was very alert, said, please tell us what was that thing that Imam told you. But then Sayyid Bahr al-Ulum with his hand made a hint that this is a secret that I cannot tell. So this honor of meeting Imam al-Zaman, while also Imam al-Zaman, you recognize him, because many people either they don't see Imam al-Zaman, they may see, for example, one of the helpers of Imam al-Zaman, or even if they see Imam al-Zaman, they may not recognize unless Imam has left. This is not very frequent. This is very exceptional, very rare that for someone at the level of Allami Bahrul Ulum can happen. So Imam is so kind that first of all, I think it was Imam's will that attracted Bahrul Ulum towards him. Imam wanted to see him. And then Imam let Bahrul Ulum to be present when he is whispering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this was a great spiritual experience for him. Imagine you are present when Imam is whispering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can you in your life be something greater than this? To see the connection between Imam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Imam doesn't say, okay, he is here, and from distance, for example, talk to him, etc. Imam invites him to go closer, and he says, Mahdi Bia. He mentions him with name and says, come forward. And when he is, polite and doesn't want to go too close, Imam himself says, come. And then he says, you should come. I'm asking you to come. And the distance is so close that it was possible for one of them to reach the other with hand. Love of Imam Mahdi Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif is very, very high. And one of ulama said something very beautiful. He said, I am very, very convinced, I am very certain that Imam Zaman's love is much, much more than the love of your mother or father for you. And certainly this is the case. Even the love for us is more than our love for ourselves. As Imam Sadiq said, إِنَّا أَرْحَمُ بِكُمْ مِنْكُمْ لَأَنفُسِكُمْ. And we know this, but we need to reflect on this. We need to make it part of our continuous thought. As soon as you think about Allah, you should think about Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. This is why the Quran keeps repeating Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim after Allah. Bismillah Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Bismillah Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Bismillah Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Even in Surah Tawbah, when there is no Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, there is no Bismillah. You know, some ulama say that the reason why there is no Bismillah is because this is to warn. And if you say, you know, in the name of Allah, who is very kind, very compassionate, very merciful, they may not take it seriously. But the question is, why we didn't just say Bismillah? For example, why the Quran doesn't start with Bismillah, or Bismillah with something which is an attribute of glory, an attribute of, you know, power and might, like Bismillah Qasim al-Jabbarin, Bismillah Mudrik al-Zalimin, etc. My understanding is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want us to have any other way of remembering Him. He wants us to remember Him as the one who is Rahman ar-Rahim. If there is no place for mentioning Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, He doesn't want to replace it with anything else. And He doesn't want even to say Bismillah only. Allah, Rahman and Rahim should remain always in the mind of every Muslim. And when we start with the name of Allah who is Rahman and Rahim, you must also do something that would suit that. Yeah, you cannot do something which is not related to Rahman and Rahim. So either you should do something which brings Rahmah to all, or Rahmah to believers. Either should be manifestation of Rahmaniyya or Rahimiyya, or both. If you can do both, that would be great. Nothing can be against anyone. Either it's especially beneficial for believers and good people, or for all, including believers. So this image of Allah should be in our mind. The same should be in our mind about Rasulullah. Rasulullah is servant of Rahman ar-Rahim. Rasulullah's mission is Rahmatan bil Alameen. And also the same about Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Full of love. Even if, God forbids, inshallah this doesn't happen to you, but suppose that your closest friends and relatives have abandoned you. Be sure that Imam Zaman would not abandon you. Imam Zaman is not judging you. Imam Zaman is not, leaving you alone. Unless you want to be alone, unless you leave him, still he has concern for you, still he loves you, still he wants you to be in the best condition. Imam Zaman is not going to, make mistake about us. Sometimes people judge us without knowing all the details, but Imam Zaman is not like that. He's full of love, full of rahmah. So, inshallah, in the next session, we will continue this discussion about some aspects of the love of Imams in general, but Imam Mahdi in particular. In the fourth night, many times, remembrance of Hurr Yazid al-Riyahi, Hurr ibn Yazid al-Riyahi is made. So we end our session with remembrance of this great man, a person who had noble character, but he was for some time misoriented. Sometimes a jewel is found in a wrong place. A jewel should be next to the jewels, but sometimes a jewel is next to, for example, ordinary stones. or even, for example, in a dust, but it's a jewel. It needs someone who knows jewels to find it and relocate it. Hur was a commander for the army of Ibn Ziyad and Yazid, but he was not one of them. He was a man of nobility, but misoriented. And if you are misoriented, it's very dangerous, because they may ask you to do things and you will do things that are not right. Like he stopped Imam Hussein alayhi salam and all the members of Ahlul Bayt and companions, and their presence with lots of soldiers and weapons, etc., certainly brought not a pleasant feeling to the children, to the women, etc. So some fear was caused, some worries, tensions. But because he had character, he managed to find his way back. He reconnected. He returned. And therefore, when he left the army of Umar Sa'ad and went towards Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Imam alayhi salam didn't treat him as a criminal, as a mischief maker, as a vicious person. In my understanding, Imam treated him as someone that belonged to his camp, but for some time he was mislocated. But when he joins, he is like any other person. This is the beauty of true conversion or reversion. And Imam treated him with honor and respect and didn't even want him to feel embarrassed. You know, sometimes when someone wrongs you, you may forget them, but still complain, say, you know, you did this, you did that, but I will forgive you, for example. Imam didn't say these things. Hur himself was embarrassed. Not only Imam didn't complain, not only Imam even kept silent, Imam tried to make him feel welcomed. Imam tried to comfort him, because Imam is full of love. And treated him like others. Even went with all the risks towards the body of Hur when he was dying, and took his head with his hands. And Imam gave him a great certificate. Anta hurrun kama sammatka ummuk. You are hur. You are a free person. You are a noble person. You are a person of good character. You are a person of virtues. You are hur in dunya and akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us also to be hur. Even if for some time we are not in the right place and location and we don't have right associates, may Allah help us to free ourselves and join our Imam and join the camp of our Imam and work for our Imam. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen.